few years ago, I received a letter from a very famous preacher in America, and if I called his name, most of you would recognize the name. He said, Dr. Hyles, I'm having a convention. It's a man who has much influence around the country, and he said, I'm having a convention. I'd like you to come to my state, and I'd like you to be the main speaker at that convention. And I did go, and you'll forgive me for being a little bit boastful, but most of the people at that convention were my crowd. By that I mean, they came, I hate to say it this way because you'll think I'm conceited, and it's awful hard for fellows handsome as I am not to be conceited. But now all over the country it'll be Hyles thinks he's handsome. And no, I don't. But I get tired of bucking public opinion. But anyway, you like that, didn't you? Jealousy is filling the platform this morning. I can feel it all over the platform. And anyway, the truth is, most of the people there were my friends, and so I preached several times, and we had a wonderful time, I think. When it was over, I went to the airport, and nobody asked me anything about how much my expenses were. And I had spent, I guess, $175, plane ticket, and transportation to and from the airport, and plus clothes cleaned and pressed, and a few meals I had to eat, and I guess $175. Well, you wait around asking for somebody to ask you what were your expenses so we can reimburse you. And nobody asked me. And I came back, and I waited, and I'm still waiting now. It's been 5 years. And I'm still waiting. A preacher that was on the program with me called me on the phone and said, Dr. Hyles, did you ever get your expense check? And I said, no, I didn't. He said, I didn't either. He said, I'll never go back there again. He said, boy, we've learned our lesson, haven't we? And I said, I haven't. He said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I've been invited back there again next year, same convention. I plan to go. Why, he said, you're a fool. And I said, yes, I plan to stay a fool, too. He said, he's just using you. And I said, isn't that wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Ask Mrs. Redepinny if she wouldn't like to be used again this morning. Ask her if she wouldn't like for some little children with dirty noses to come and be used of her, or use her this morning. Ask her if it would be a wonderful, wonderful thing if she could turn back the calendar to the days when the children ran around the house and the telephone rang often and folks often knocked on the door in the house, a beehive of activity, and folks were using her this morning. And so he said, I think it's sort of crazy. I said, it may be crazy, but I'd like to be used. He's just using you. I said, yeah, he's going to use me again this next year, too. I went back the next year. I waited for him to... We had a good crowd, and most of the crowd was my crowd. And after it's all over, I went to a study and sort of waited around for him to ask me how much expenses were. Plane tickets had gone up 5%, and now I'm expensive about $200 that year. And I waited, and I said, I had a good flight. Fly. I had to fly down here. He said, I'm glad you did. Hope you have a safe trip back. I said, boy, I said, yeah, fly back. Like I flew down and fly. I said, this is what time I leave. I took out my ticket, held my ticket up there like that. Said, ticket, leave. And held up, pointed the price. He said, I'll get you and take you to the airport. Brought me to the airport, and not a word about expenses. That's $200. And I came home and I waited, and I'm still waiting. It's been 4 years now, and still no expenses. Another fellow called me on the phone that was a singer at that meeting. He said, Dr. Hyles, he said, I haven't gotten my expense check yet. Have you? I said, no, haven't got it for last year either yet. He said, I tell you what, aren't you glad we found out about him? I said, what'd you find out about him? He said, well, we found out not to go there anymore. I said, not me. I said, God bless us. We had a wonderful meeting. I can tell you some preachers across America right now whose lives were transformed and churches were completely transformed at that meeting. And the fellow said, he's not going to use me like that. And I said, I'll let him use me like that. You say you like it? No, I always enjoy getting an expense check. In fact, I enjoy sometimes getting a little more than an expense check. And no, I didn't like it, but he wrote me again and said, look, we had such a good meeting last year. would you come back for our national convention again this next year? I wrote back and said, yes, I'll come back. And I saw this preacher and singer both one place, and they said, you go back there again? I said, yeah. Well, he's just going to use you. I said, yeah, and I plan to be used, and I like to be used. There's a boy in this church, young man, got saved here, got called to preach here. I was his hero. He came to me every decision he made. He loved me very much, and I loved him and still do. And one day he came in and said, I think God's calling me to preach, and we prayed about it. He came down the aisle and started to preach the gospel. That boy, fine young man, he went off to college. Time came to get ordained. I think I recommended him, maybe not, to his church. No, not that one. But time came to get ordained. And then I ordained him. And I was his preacher. I was his hero. He wrote me often. He had a problem, he'd call. Had needed advice, he'd call. A large church opened up, and I recommended him to that large church. And, I told the people. They wrote me and said, we need a pastor. And I said, I can tell you, splendid young man. And I recommended him. And boy, one of the first things you want to do was have me in the church. But a little later, he got probably a little embarrassed about me because I had some convictions, maybe that were a little stronger than maybe what his church had. And he had Dr. John Rice coming, and so he canceled out Dr. John Rice and canceled out his pastor. And I wept. And I'm not, I can't go to his church now. I don't know why. I just can't go. Cancel Dr. Rice out. Cancel me out. By the way, when you cancel Dr. Rice out, you cancel me out too automatically. And, any of my friends for that matter. And so, he cancels out. And somebody said, for the house, I heard about that. That fellow just used you. I said, isn't that wonderful? Isn't it wonderful to be used? Ask some dear lady this morning who's never been used or hasn't been used in years. Ask some mother who used to hear the pitter-patter of little feet around the house and would love to see handprints on the towels again. Who used to say, I wish I could never see, I wish those towels were clean. They're clean now. They're clean now. Ask some mother who's up in years, 80, 85, 90 years of age. Ask her if it would be wonderful if she could be used again. There's a young man in Texas. I think the finest preacher student I ever had, the finest prospect for the ministry I ever had. He married into our family. I've never seen a young preacher could preach like that young man. Went to college. He doesn't know it. Well, I guess he does know it some too. When he got in trouble in college, I sent him money. I went down went to the place where he was going to college and went to a bank and borrowed money on my own signature at the bank where they knew me. Went down and bought an Assembly of God church building that was for sale and gave it to him so he could start a church. When they were hungry, I sent money. Time and time again, I've put money in an envelope. Shouldn't do that, but I've done it in an envelope unsigned and sent it to them. I've paid the tuition. I've sent the tuition money to the college business office and kept him in school and got him started. One time, when he was near us, his car broke down. I gave him a car. It was a used car, but I gave it to him. Just said, here it is, one of our cars. Take it. You're going to have it. Where is he now? He's divorced from the little lady in our family. And he's in sin and living for the devil and drinking liquor and doing nothing for God. I recall I saw him in a motel not long ago. He didn't know I was in 1,000 miles there. I woke up and I saw him in the back, had long shaggy hair. I walked up and gave him $3, said that's for a haircut, and walked on. And he said, hey, come here. And I went back and talked to him a while. Somebody said, boy, I bet you learned your lesson. No, I didn't learn my lesson. And if I can, I'll buy a church for somebody else one of these days. And if I can, if a fellow needs a car, I'll give it to him. And if somebody I love is in need of some tuition money, and I have it, I'll send it to the college where they're going and try to help them. Hey, you say you're a sucker. Yeah, I know, and I like being a sucker. I plan to stay a sucker. And you'd be happier if you were a sucker. But they're just using you. I don't know anything any more wonderful than being used. Oh, listen, to be used. You say, hey, for the house. Somebody said, that's not fair. I know it's not fair, but I plan to be a sucker again. Somebody said, he's just after you for what he can get out of you. I know, but I happen to like to give. The lady sat in my office, last night? And she said, Dr. Evans, Mrs. Evans, has been paying my way to college. Said, they don't know I know it, but I overheard Dr. Evans tell his wife, we're going to keep that girl in school. She's been good to us. She's done us some favors. We're going to keep that girl in school. And she said, I know they're doing it. God bless these good teachers and administrators who sacrifice. And this same young lady told me, she said, I had money for school. Had over $400 saved up. But she said, some other students this last semester couldn't stay in school and help them pay their bill. Now I don't have money to stay in school myself. And she said, but I can't take the money from Dr. and Ms. Evans. I just can't do it. She said, what can I do? I can't take the money. And I said, suppose that the people you tried to help wouldn't have taken your money. She said, that made me very sad. I said, how do you think it's going to make Dr. and Ms. Evans feel then when you don't take what they want to give? I said, young lady, you listen to me. I said, don't you ever steal from anybody their privilege of giving. Don't you ever steal their privilege of giving. Oh, I know you're going to be used. Listen, I'll tell you, I've got tens of thousands of dollars that I've given away, just given away. And a fellow went out and got drunk with it, maybe. You say, you're going to give some more away? Yep, I'm going to give some more away. All you drunks can come by after the service again this morning if you want to. Yeah. You say, well, you're a sucker. Now, I know it, and I like being a sucker. You're a soft touch. I'd rather be a soft touch than hard boiled. And so somebody said, well, Brother Hyles, do you ever feel used? Yeah, sure do. It's a wonderful feeling. Somebody asked the other day, said, Brother Hyles, do you ever feel like a machine? You'll forgive me, but I feel like a machine much of the time. I feel like a vending machine. I go away to preach somewhere, and they put me in a room, and they come in, they put a quarter in the slot, and I walk out. And I preach. When I finish preaching, I walk back in the room. Man, nobody ever comes by much unless they need some help. Only time anybody ever comes and knocks on my door out of town is some preacher saying, Brother Hyles, I heard you're in town. I got a problem. I got to talk to you. I got to ask this question. You're the only man in the world can help me. Telephone rings. Brother Hyles, Brother Hyles, I've got to talk to you. I've driven 300 miles. I heard you're out here in this area. I've driven 300 miles. I've got to talk to you. My church is going to the dog. You're the only man in the world can help me. And they get through. They put a little quarter in. I wish they would put a quarter in. But I feel that way. I feel like a machine. They come and get me. If I preach at 7 o'clock, they come get me at 6:30. They drive me up there. They put me on the pulpit, and they introduce me. And then I get up, and they put a quarter in, and I say, I am so happy to be here. And good morning, ladies. I preach so often, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I say, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad to be here. And hope we'll have a good service. You say, well, you ever feel like you're used? Yeah, I feel like I'm used an awful lot. You say, ever get tired of it? Never get tired of it. Never get tired of it. Folks come to my office door. They walk in. Nobody ever comes by and says, Brother Hyles, just came by to tell you, glory to God, praise the Lord, everything's fine. Well, one lady did one time, but it took 3 days to revive me. They come in. Brother Hyles, I got a problem. Now, those same people, I may spend hours with them on their problems. And I may spend weeks and months with them. I could tell you a dozen families like that. I've given them my time, way into the night, sometimes past midnight, months and sometimes years. And then I disappoint them one time, they get mad and leave the church. One time. I mean, I've helped folks raise children. And every time they had a problem, they'd come to me with a problem. And I've tried to help.